Dame is number one.
Notre Dame with a miracle win as the clock
Going
runs.
in. Notre Dame has scored.
Everyone, it's Brian Harden. Got Coach right here. So, Lynette, go ahead and cue up the questions today, and we'll get started.
Yes, sir. If you would like to ask a question today, please signal by pressing the star key followed by the digit 1. If you are joining us today using a speakerphone, please make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, if you do have a question or comment, it's star 1 now. We'll take your first question from Zach Fortuna with ESPN.com.
Hey, Brian, do you have any updates on the injured players from yesterday?
Yeah, let me get my list here. Slaughter and Eifert have been cleared. Everett Golson had a thumb. He'll be fine. Gastroc strain on Lewis. He'll be moving around tomorrow. Should be cleared. Ankle sprain on Daniels. We'll progress him during the week. He should be able to answer the bell. And then, what else do I have here? I've got Manti Te'o with a bruised sternum. So everything looks to be okay for not ruling anybody out for this game.
Going off that, I mean, did you learn something about your team that you just can't replicate through training camp going into a big game like yesterday?
I think anytime, you get contributions from so many different players, that's what you try to prepare for. And, you build your program in terms of when you get that chance, when you get that opportunity, we have high expectations for you. So, when Sheldon Day's got to step in there and play a whole game, when Troy Nicholas has to take on more of a role in the passing game, John Goodman steps in late for Daniels. I think you're absolutely right. Your guys are all committed to being the best they can be.
Hey, one more from me. Yesterday, situations with Golson like yesterday, do you guys ever tinker with this motion or try to get him to use the laces? Has that ever been a problem with them?
No, I thought he threw the ball very well yesterday. He missed one, one pass that we thought that, we should have connected on. But no, he throws the ball well. That's something that we really don't coach up.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
We'll move next to Tim O'Malley with Irish Eyes.
Hey, Brian, can you evaluate Prince Shembo's play? I thought he might have been the most impressive defender that didn't really fill the stat sheet yesterday.
Well, he plays so hard every single play, and of course he's part of our pass rush package as well as he's an anchor as one of our linebackers. So in terms of snaps, in terms of the way he plays the game, he's so valuable to the overall success of the defense. So yeah, I would agree with your assessment. He just a relentless player for us.
And I think you probably had like a mixed bag of results using the nickel the 9 or 10 times you did. Was that part of the kind of concern to keep the base linebackers in on that 4th and 10 where they scored?
No, I mean they attacked our will linebacker, so our will doesn't come out of the game, and they set him up with a pretty good double move, and but no, the Sam Backer's out of the game, so the dog's out, but the will linebacker is a guy that we have confidence in that he can play that number 2 receiver.
Thank you.
Eric Hansen with South Bend Tribune has your next question.
Hey, Brian, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of other guys that I might have missed when you were talking earlier. Ishak, Tausch, and Day.
Ishak had we're just going to call it an elbow contusion. He'll be fine. Okay. Sheldon Day was just gassed. He got some cramps. He played virtually the whole game, and he's not used to playing because he plays so hard for so long. He's fine. And I'm sorry, who was the third?
Tausch, and then you might have mentioned Cap, and maybe I didn't hear you talk about Cap.
Yeah, Cap should be fine. He had a gastroc calf strain. We expect him to start moving around tomorrow. We think that's going to be a pretty quick recovery, that he'd be available for us this week. And Tausch, we'll find out. We'll start our ST kicking regimen from him begins on Tuesday. He was better today, and then it'll be a competitive situation during the week.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brinza misses his first one, but then looked pretty smooth in the operation moving forward, hit a big kick at the end of the game. What can you tell us about him and what you've seen from him?
Well, we knew that he's a guy that had opportunities like this in his high school career to win games and won a state championship, by kicking a game winner. So the pressure is something that he's done quite well with. He gets a little quick sometimes, and one of the reasons why we wanted to center the ball and not take any time off the clock, we wanted to get that full opportunity to get him out and get settled under a pressure kick, and he executed it very well. So now, obviously we've got a guy that is competing for that position now with Nick.
When you were at Cincinnati and Tony got hurt and you reintroduced him into the lineup after Zach had been doing a great job for you, how did you handle the two personalities there with playing two guys, and is there something there that's transferable to whatever you decide to do with Golson Hendricks, Golson Reese moving forward?
Well, that situation was that a starter got hurt and came in and had to play a couple of games for him. This one was a late in the game 2-minute drive. So the circumstances were different, and so Everett just gets back up and continues on his progression as our starter, and we know that Tommy and Andrew give us some really good assets at that position if they're called upon and we need them.
Just following up on that, I mean, how do you handle Everett in saying, I'm pulling you from the game because this guy gives us the best chance to win, and how did he react to that?
Well, I think anybody that gets taken out of the game is going to react in a manner that he wants to play, and if they don't, I don't want him to be our quarterback. So, I know Everett wanted to be in the game, and that's a good thing, but he's been supported by Tommy and Andrew, and now it was his chance to support Tommy in that situation, and he's a young man that's understanding and growing every day, and we won't have any issues moving forward.
What are your expectations for Sierra's role this week, and what you'll see from him in practice and on Saturday?
Yeah, reintegrate him. He's a really good player. So we like good players, and so we want to get him on the field and get him involved. And obviously because of the game and the way the game unfolded, George didn't get enough touches. So we got to do a good job of making sure that all those guys are reintegrated. But certainly he's a player that can help us win.
And last for me, some of Golson's sacks, I mean, is that on him maybe not getting rid of the ball quick enough, throwing it out, or do you feel like those were on the line?
Well, I think there's one for sure that he clearly needed to get rid of the football. I'll take one for we were running some hitch routes and they were sitting on our routes and he didn't have anything.
Right.
And then there's a couple on the offensive line. So I wouldn't pin it on one guy. I think Everett knows he's got to do a better job of getting rid of the ball. There's some guys up front that got beat on one-on-one matchups, and I got to make sure I get some plays in there where he's not holding the ball.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pete Sampson with Irish Illustrated has your next question.
Brian, last year you referenced something called, it's the concept of call it and haul it, get the play in and run it. Is that something you feel like Everett can do, or do you see him trending more towards the way you ran the offense in the second half where it's a lot of check with me on the sideline?
Well, I think we're going through a period of time where, he's learning a lot more, and, there'll be plays where we can just, and they were later in the game, I think we we had a couple of drives in there where we were able to just call it and haul it. But, it's a process for us to integrate, all those things as he develops as a quarterback. So ideally, you'd get up there and just call it and run it. They presented some unique challenges to us in terms of their front looks that we didn't want to run some certain plays because of the circumstances of the game. So to answer the question, yeah, we want more call it and haul it, but the game and the way it was put together for us required us, to help from the sideline too.
This kind of builds on Eric's question, but in terms of Everett understanding protections, getting the line in the right protection schemes, how good is he at that right now? And where does he stand in that part of the game?
He's pretty good. I mean, I'm just pulling through my grade sheets here. In the first half, he had one protection check that was wrong, and he had one running play that he should have changed. It was some very subtle changes into their fronts. They were in a 5-2 and then merged to a 3-4, and they looked very similar, yet they influenced the play quite a bit. And it required us to get with him at halftime. We made those adjustments in the second half because they were so difficult to tell between the two fronts. That's when we started calling the plays. But he did a pretty good job. There were only 2 times where he didn't have us in the right look.
On your defensive line, could you evaluate what you got from Sheldon and Springman, and then also kind of an injury update of a guy who didn't play? I'm assuming he's injured, Chase Hounshaw. Where does he kind of stand in the mix right now?
No, Chase isn't hurt. He's just out of position, where he's behind Stephon Tuitt. And so, as you know, Stephon's a guy that, is going to rack a lot of minutes for us. We think Sheldon Day is an outstanding player, and he came in and did a very nice job. And, Tony Springman is a guy that we have a lot of confidence. But those are inside guys, and when you're talking about an outside guy with Hounshaw, he's behind a very good player.
Thanks.
Yep.
And I would like to remind our audience that it is *1 if you have a question. If you find that your question has been answered, you may remove yourself from the queue by pressing *2. We will move to our next question from Brian Hamilton with the Chicago Tribune.
Brian, when you get to a place like Michigan State on Saturday and you may have to help Everett from the sideline, how do you do that in a more hostile environment? How do you make sure the communication is streamlined over the course of this week?
Yeah, we're really set up to be able to do and run our entire offense without any verbal communication. We can put it on the center, and the center can be the guy that's snapping the ball. So it shouldn't be a problem at all. When we're at home, we use a lot more, of our own inflection. But if it gets loud, then we're in pretty good shape to put it on, the offensive line. We can put it on a center, or we can put it on the guard. So we're not concerned about that.
I guess just sort of another Golson question, but as a younger guy who's kind of going through being a starter for the first time, is there any extra you do to make sure that he isn't looking over his shoulder? Obviously, you were very adamant yesterday he's the starter. You said it right away, but because he's a sophomore, because he's going through this for the first time, do you take any extra pains to make sure he gets the dynamic you're trying to achieve there?
Yeah, I think we spend so much time together that he's going to know that what we tell him is what we mean. We're not going to be sending mixed messages, and there's got to be a trust factor there that, hey, what we tell you is what we mean. Let's go back to work. So I think if you only talk to him once a week, yeah, you probably would have those concerns. But we eat dinner together every day, so there's constant communication where we're all on the same page.
I just want to clarify one thing from yesterday too. You would have gone to Tommy on that last drive regardless whether Everett banged up his thumb or not, correct?
I had already begun the conversation with Coach Martin about installing Tommy into that situation. So the knowledge of running our 2-minute trumped any kind of injury that he may have had. Now, it contributed at the end to make it an easier decision for me.
And I mean, obviously, yesterday we only got to talk to Zach and Manti after the game. Just
Right.
curious what went into the decision to kind of limit it to those guys being the spokesman, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I had to do what I thought was in the best interest of the team, and I know at times that might put me at odds with you guys, but and I understand that. But last night I thought it was best for our team to have a couple of captains speak, and I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
Moving next to Wes Morgan from Blue and Gold Illustrated.
Hey, Brian. Just wondered, what you're seeing from Lewis Mixon this year as opposed to last year. I mean, is it just a natural progression, a young man, getting more mature, or is he doing things just a little bit better than he was before?
I think both of those. I think he's a much more mature player, comes to work and practices hard. He's a fierce competitor, loves to play the game, and he's just getting a lot stronger. His volume is up. All the things that you mentioned, he is so much better in that sense this year.
Just how big is it to have a guy like that into it in a situation where Cap's out and being able to take the pressure off the rest of the defense?
Well, I think it would be more pressure on him if he didn't have guys like Springman who could give him a blow, and Kona Schwenke, and obviously Sheldon Day played a lot, Prince and Ishak. So to have a number of guys that we can move in there takes a lot of the pressure off those guys, because they could be out there every snap, but if they can't go, then, at 100%, then, they can't help you. So I think the depth on the defensive line when you lose a guy like Cap showed up big for us on Saturday.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Tim Priester with Irish Illustrated has your next question.
Brian, we talked late last week about the lines of communication between you and Chuck Martin on game day, how much talking's going on. I would imagine that when you're in the situation, you're in the second half where they were getting the plays from the sideline, that the conversation between you and Chuck is pretty fast and furious, deciphering what's going on and passing that onto the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some, anytime we go into our look offense, there's some pre-thought as to, what we're looking for. And those calls are even easier, Tim, because, if you got this look, we want to do this. So that actually is a lot easier in terms of a consensus on what we want to do than, say, just flowing and try to run fast and run tempo. Sometimes you want to let somebody get into a flow, and you don't want to be interrupting or inserting because there's a flow. But when it's done from the sideline, that's a lot easier in the process.
All right. And I think you called 4 of your timeouts in the first and third quarter. Is that just going to be a part of the process as Everett starts to learn what he's seeing out there, and sometimes you're just going to have to burn him at any point during the game?
Yeah, Tim, we uncharacteristically had to use them, and I took a bit of an issue yesterday with the management relative to substitution. I thought the way the game was managed, that they were allowed an inordinate amount of time to defensively substitute. Therefore, it left us a short clock to try to get the right checks in, and consequently forced us to use some timeouts. So we'll have to go back and look at some things in terms of how we manage that, so we don't fall into this situation where we're burning timeouts left and right.
I know last year there was an attempt made with Kona Schwenke to preserve a year, which didn't work out. Is that a possibility with Hounshell this year?
Yeah, I don't know that I have not had that conversation with Coach Diaco. If he's called upon, we really don't get into those kind of decisions until we reach that point in the season, which is week 6, before we even begin to have those kinds of conversations.
Then is Justin Ferguson going to change numbers permanently here so you don't run into dual numbers on the field?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to Sean Stiers with Irish Sports Daily. Mr. Stiers, your line is open.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
I apologize there. I had a little technical difficulty. I guess the question I would have is, some of the bumps and bruises that you guys had aside yesterday, how important was it to have a game that was decidedly more physical after manhandling Navy last week?
It's interesting that you bring that up because I just finished before I came on with our team physicians and our head trainer, and we were a lot more sore physically. We were a lot more sluggish after the coming into the Purdue week in terms of not injuries as much as just being downright sore. We had less of that. We just had a couple more injuries that got guys out of the game. So they were pretty happy with the way the guys came in today, and the guys felt pretty good. So by and large, even though the Navy game score-wise, it was a physical game as well.
Mr. Stiers, do you have anything further?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
We'll move next to David Bantress with Gushin News.
Hi, good afternoon, Coach. You guys are now off to a 2-0 start after starting off 0-2 last year. What's different, if anything, about this team that has enabled you guys to get off to a good start and actually yesterday win a game late when that didn't work out so well against Michigan last year?
We just, we made the plays that we needed to in this game. You can go back to South Florida. We turned the ball over. Michigan, we turned the ball over. So I think if there's probably one common denominator, other than the late fumble that Everett had, we've taken the ball away more than we've turned it over, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
All right, I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Moving on to Mark Lazarus with the Chicago Sun-Times.
Hi, Brian. You mentioned that you guys try to reintegrate Sierra Wood, obviously, into the offense this week. Given how the game went yesterday and how little George had to do you worry that there's not going to be enough carries to go around at all?
No, I don't think that's a concern, but I think we really have to make certain that we get him into the game and find ways to get those touches to him. So I think it's something we'll have a heightened awareness and making sure that those guys get the ample touches necessary to help our offense. So I think that falls on my shoulders and Coach Martin's shoulders to make sure that happens.
Do you have a number one right now at running back?
Yes, Theo Riddick.
All right. And not to beat a dead horse too bad, but do you anticipate using Tommy in situations like this down the road? If it's down a 2-minute drill like that, is that going to be a role for him at all?
No, I don't see it as a role. I see it as if we feel like Tommy can help us win a game, or he can come in a situation where we believe it's the right fit, then he'll be prepared to do so. But no, I don't see this as, and I use this baseball analogy, we'd like our starters to finish the game. We want them to go all 9 innings, but occasionally you may need some help. Maybe you need long relief, and maybe you need some short relief. So I don't want to take anything off the table, but we'd like our starter to start it and finish it.
Thanks, Coach.
And gentlemen, at this time, there are no further questions in the queue. I'll turn the conference back over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll have a transcript posted on our website later this afternoon.